Ladies and gentlemen, in a world dominated by noise, by social media feeds filled with luxury cars, designer clothes, exotic vacations, and goals, it's easy to mistake volume for value. But today I want to talk about a truth that's often overlooked. Real wealth is quiet. We've been conditioned to associate wealth with what we see: the diamond-encrusted watches, the rented Lamborghinis, the first-class selfies. But the loudest displays are often not wealth. They're the performance of wealth. Because when you truly have it, you don't need to prove it. Let's look at the truly wealthy, those with generational impact, financial independence, and peace of mind. What do they have in common? Discretion, discipline, control. They live beneath their means. They own more than they owe. And perhaps most importantly, they don't need applause to feel validated. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958. Many billionaires wear the same $20 Casio watch every day. And while the internet flexes rented jets and borrowed time, the truly wealthy are having quiet conversations in rooms we don't see about assets, ownership, and legacy. Why is this? Because real wealth isn't about status, it's about freedom. Freedom from debt, freedom to walk away, freedom to say no, freedom to choose how you spend your time and with whom you spend it. That kind of wealth doesn't shout, it whispers. It moves with intention, not attention. Now, I'm not here to shame ambition or success. Wanting nice things is human. Celebrating wins is healthy. But let me challenge you with this. If your goal is to look rich, you may never be rich, because money that's spent to impress is money that's not invested to grow. So instead of chasing visibility, chase value. Instead of asking, how do I look? Ask, what do I own? Instead of shouting to the world, focus on building a world that doesn't need validation. Let your results speak quietly. Let your net worth grow silently. Let your peace be the loudest thing in the room. Because at the end of the day, real wealth doesn't need an audience. It just needs purpose. In today's hyper-connected world, appearances have become currency. Social media has created an environment where the loudest voice, the flashiest image, and the most extravagant lifestyle often dominate our feeds and influence our perceptions. We're surrounded by people who seem to have it all: the cars, the vacations, the clothes, the homes. It's easy to fall into the trap of assuming that these external markers reflect internal success. But what many fail to recognize is that real wealth, the kind that brings lasting impact and true financial independence, rarely demands attention. It does not seek applause or validation from others. Instead, it moves quietly, strategically, and with deep confidence. True wealth does not need to prove itself. It doesn't walk into a room needing to be seen or recognized. This is because those who are truly wealthy financially, emotionally, and intellectually understand that their value is not dependent on what others think. They know that public validation is fleeting and ultimately irrelevant to their long-term goals. A person who genuinely has control over their finances and their life doesn't crave the spotlight because their wealth already provides the most valuable thing: freedom. Compare this with the growing culture of performative success, where many people feel pressured to project an image of prosperity. This projection often comes at a cost, sometimes quite literally. Credit card debt, car loans, and high-interest borrowing are commonly used to finance a lifestyle that looks rich on the outside but is hollow and fragile underneath. It's not unusual to find someone driving a luxury vehicle while struggling to pay rent, or flaunting designer brands while living without an emergency fund. These decisions aren't necessarily made out of malice or vanity. More often, they're rooted in a deep-seated need to be seen as successful. This need for validation is deeply human. We all want to be admired, respected, and acknowledged. But when those desires are tied to material displays, it becomes a dangerous game. The more someone seeks validation through wealth, the more likely they are to chase short-term impressions over long-term security. They begin to live for the moment, for the likes and compliments, rather than for financial growth or freedom. It becomes about maintaining an image, not building a foundation. In contrast, those who are truly wealthy understand that validation is not something that needs to be broadcast or sought after. They are often focused on different metrics, ones that aren't visible to the public eye. Net worth, passive income, equity, financial resilience. These aren't flashy or instantly impressive. You can't photograph a debt-free life or capture the feeling of knowing your children's education is paid for. You can't post the peace of mind that comes from not being controlled by a paycheck. But these are the things that define real wealth. The quietness of true wealth also reflects a mindset of maturity and discipline. It requires saying no to short-term pleasures and distractions in favor of long-term goals. It involves making deliberate, often unglamorous choices like budgeting, saving, investing, and avoiding unnecessary debt. These decisions don't attract praise from the outside world. In fact, they often go unnoticed. But over time, they create a foundation so strong that it cannot be shaken by market downturns or changing trends. Moreover, real wealth brings with it a shift in priorities. When you no longer feel the need to impress, you begin to focus on what truly matters: your family, your health, your legacy, your time. You start to spend your resources on things that are fulfilling rather than flashy. A quiet life full of purpose, contribution, and contentment becomes more appealing than an expensive life that constantly demands attention. This is why some of the world's most financially successful individuals live in surprisingly modest ways. They don't broadcast their bank balances, they don't wear their net worth on their sleeves. Why? Because they're not trying to win a popularity contest. They're trying to build, to preserve, and to contribute. The world's wealthiest families, those with multi-generational wealth, understand that noise attracts attention, and attention can attract risk, envy, or distraction. They protect their peace by being discreet. None of this is to say that wealth should be hidden out of shame or guilt. Celebrating success is healthy, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. But when the motivation behind our financial decisions is rooted in the desire to be validated by others, we risk losing sight of what wealth is truly for. It's not about impressing others, it's about empowering ourselves. So when we see someone living a quiet, modest life, we shouldn't assume they have less. In many cases, they have more than we realize: more security, more autonomy, more freedom. And when we see someone loudly broadcasting their luxury, we should pause before assuming it's a reflection of wealth. Sometimes the need to shout is a sign of something missing. Real wealth at its core is about independence, peace of mind, and the freedom to live on your own terms. It's not measured by the volume of your voice, but by the depth of your security. And those who truly understand that, who live it day in and day out, rarely feel the need to say a word. Because real wealth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It simply is. Would you like the next key point written in the same expanded style? In a culture that places immense value on appearances, it has become increasingly common to associate material display with personal worth. The house someone lives in, the car they drive, the clothes they wear, all of these have become social indicators not just of financial success, but of status, intelligence, ambition, and even happiness. But beneath the polished surface of extravagant spending, there often lies a more complex and at times uncomfortable truth. Loud spending is frequently a mask for deeper insecurity. Human beings are wired to seek approval. From a young age, we learn that certain behaviors and achievements are rewarded with praise. As we grow older, that desire for affirmation doesn't disappear, it just evolves. In today's world, that affirmation often takes the form of likes, shares, compliments, and social comparisons. Many people don't just want to be successful, they want others to see that they're successful. They want proof that they've made it, that they're valuable, that they belong. And the easiest way to manufacture that proof is through visible consumption. The luxury bag, the latest smartphone, the designer suit, the watch with a logo big enough to be noticed across the room. All of these are not just items, they are symbols. Symbols meant to project an identity. I'm important, I'm successful, I'm worth your admiration. The problem is, when self-worth is tied to external symbols, the need to display them becomes unrelenting. It's no longer about owning something because it's useful or enjoyable. It becomes about owning it because of what it says about you to others. This performative relationship with wealth can be financially destructive. People begin to live not according to what they can truly afford, but according to what they think others expect of them. They take out loans to buy cars that lose value the moment they're driven off the lot. They swipe credit cards to keep up appearances at restaurants, clubs, or events. They prioritize immediate recognition over long-term financial health. This kind of spending is loud, flashy, and often unsustainable. But it serves a purpose. It hides doubt. It hides the fear of being seen as ordinary, unsuccessful, or left behind. On the surface, this kind of spending may look like confidence, but if we look closely, it often reveals the opposite. It reflects a deep vulnerability, a need for reassurance, for validation, for belonging. Insecurity doesn't always look like uncertainty or self-doubt. Sometimes it looks like overcompensation. And in a consumer-driven world, overcompensation is loud. Consider the quiet contrast. Those who are genuinely secure in their success don't need constant affirmation. They don't feel the urge to prove their worth through external signs. That's because their identity isn't built on what they own. It's built on what they've achieved, what they believe, and what they know about themselves. Financially secure individuals often understand that real value doesn't depreciate in the driveway or sit in a closet. It grows quietly in investment portfolios, in businesses, in savings accounts. It accumulates over time through discipline and patience, not impulse and display. This doesn't mean wealthy people never spend or enjoy their money. Many do comfortably, and sometimes extravagantly. But the difference lies in why they do it. There's a world of difference between buying something because you love it and buying something because you hope others will love you more because of it. The former comes from a place of fulfillment. The latter comes from a place of need. Society's obsession with outward wealth also reinforces damaging cycles. People compare themselves to curated illusions on social media where only the best moments are shared and the bills are never posted. They compare their behind-the-scenes struggles with someone else's highlight reel. The result? A sense of inadequacy that drives even more spending in an attempt to close the gap between perception and reality. Unfortunately, this insecurity-fueled consumption doesn't just affect individuals. It affects families, relationships, and entire communities. Financial strain caused by trying to keep up with a certain image can lead to stress, conflict, and even long-term debt. People sacrifice their peace of mind, their future, and their freedom, all for the sake of looking successful in the present. Breaking this cycle requires honesty. It requires the courage to ask hard questions. Am I buying this because I truly need or value it, or because I want to be seen a certain way? What story am I trying to tell with my money? Who am I trying to impress, and why does their opinion matter? It also requires a mindset shift. We must start redefining what success actually looks like. True success isn't about being the loudest in the room, it's about being the most grounded. It's about financial health, not financial image. It's about being able to walk away from a toxic job, not about driving to it in a luxury car. It's about security, choices, and the freedom to live life on your own terms. When we begin to value these things over temporary applause, we loosen the grip of insecurity. We begin to build wealth, not just financially, but emotionally. And in doing so, we allow ourselves to trade loud spending for quiet confidence, an exchange that's far more valuable than anything money alone can buy. In a society that prizes visibility, where sharing has become second nature and public recognition is often mistaken for achievement, the choice to remain private may seem almost countercultural. But among the truly wealthy, privacy isn't just a preference, it's a powerful strategy. Those who have accumulated real wealth understand something that many overlook. The more you have, the more you need to protect. And not everything that matters should be visible to the world. We often imagine the rich as people constantly in the spotlight, attending high-profile events featured in magazines and broadcasting their lives to millions of followers. While some do embrace public attention, many of the world's wealthiest individuals actively avoid it. They choose quiet lives out of the public eye because they value something that is far more precious than fame: control. Control over one's time, control over one's decisions, control over who has access to their lives, their thoughts, their assets. The truly wealthy are not interested in having their every move scrutinized or admired. They don't need a crowd to validate their success, and they understand that attention, while flattering at first, comes with a price. It invites envy, expectations, and often intrusion. The more visible you become, the more others feel entitled to your story, your choices, and your resources. This is why many successful individuals choose to keep a low profile. They live in comfortable but understated homes. They drive regular cars. They avoid the spotlight, not out of shyness or modesty alone, but because they've learned that peace of mind is more valuable than public approval. Privacy isn't about secrecy, it's about sovereignty. When you're not constantly broadcasting your life, you're free to live it on your own terms. There is also a deep psychological benefit to this kind of discretion. When your success is not up for constant evaluation by others, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of performance. You can make decisions based on logic and values, not on how things will be perceived. You can take risks quietly, you can fail privately, and recover without the added weight of public judgment. This quiet freedom allows for sharper thinking, clearer priorities, and better long-term outcomes. Financially, too, privacy serves a purpose. Wealth that is displayed invites not only admiration, but also targeting from fraudsters, opportunists, and even acquaintances who suddenly treat you as a resource rather than a person. Public wealth can become a magnet for manipulation. Discretion, on the other hand, serves as a shield. It protects relationships from being transactional. It ensures that when people offer support, friendship, or advice, they're doing so from authenticity, not expectation. This need for privacy often grows in direct proportion to someone's wealth. As assets increase, so do the risks of exposure. Lawsuits, false claims, family tensions, and social pressures can all intensify when finances are made public. The rich understand that keeping a low profile minimizes liabilities. That's why many choose to put assets in trusts, work through private companies, or invest through anonymous vehicles. Their decisions are structured for protection, not attention. Moreover, control extends beyond finances. Wealthy individuals often value control over their time and energy more than anything money can buy. They understand that attention is a currency, and spending it unwisely depletes focus and productivity. For them, saying no is a form of power. Whether it's saying no to a meeting, a social obligation, or a tempting distraction, Their schedules are carefully guarded, their energy deliberately directed. They don't just spend their money wisely, they spend their attention wisely too. This level of control allows the wealthy to shape their environments intentionally. They surround themselves with people they trust, they seek out advisors who prioritize discretion, they build systems that protect their peace so they can continue growing their wealth without unnecessary interference. And this isn't just about paranoia or elitism, it's about strategic thinking. Just as a business protects its most important assets, so do individuals who have built significant wealth. There's also a cultural and generational aspect to this mindset. Many wealthy families emphasize humility, restraint, and responsibility over flamboyance. They pass down values before they pass down assets. They understand that true wealth is sustained not just by good investments, but by good judgment. For them, privacy is part of stewardship, of preserving not just money, but values, relationships, and legacy. What makes this approach so powerful is that it runs counter to the modern impulse to overshare. While the world is busy trying to be seen, the rich are busy trying to be smart. While others chase followers, they chase financial independence. And while many measure success by how loudly they can announce it, the truly wealthy measure success by how little they need to say at all. This is not to suggest that public figures cannot be wealthy or that those who live visibly are somehow less disciplined. But when you examine the habits of those who have preserved wealth over decades or even generations, a pattern emerges. They protect their privacy as fiercely as they protect their portfolios. They understand that being in control means being selective about what you show, who you trust, and how you spend your most limited resources, time, energy, and attention. In the end, privacy isn't about hiding, it's about choosing. Choosing what to reveal and what to reserve. Choosing a life of calm over a life of chaos. Choosing to own your story rather than let the world write it for you. And those choices, made again and again with intention and wisdom, are often what separates the truly wealthy from those who are simply rich for a moment. The common perception of wealth often centers around luxury, designer clothes, expensive cars, multi-million-dollar mansions, lavish vacations, and high-profile events. These images have become synonymous with being rich. But when you look beyond the surface and speak to those who have built lasting, meaningful wealth, a different truth emerges. Wealth, at its core, isn't about flash. It's not about being seen. It's about being free. Real wealth isn't about impressing others. It's about owning your time, your decisions, and your life. Freedom is the quiet, powerful essence of true wealth. It's the ability to walk away from situations that don't serve you, whether that's a toxic job, a one-sided relationship, or a place that doesn't reflect your values. It's waking up in the morning and knowing that your day belongs to you, not to a boss or a company or a financial obligation. It's the power to choose, not just what you buy, but how you live. That kind of freedom rarely comes from loud spending. In fact, the more someone spends to appear wealthy, the more likely they are to be trapped by their spending. The oversized house with the oversized mortgage, the car payments that stretch out over years, the lifestyle that requires constant income just to maintain, these aren't signs of freedom, they're signs of dependence. A person who must work endlessly to support their image is not free, no matter how glamorous their life looks from the outside. Real freedom often looks far more modest. It's the person who lives in a paid-off home who doesn't owe anything to anyone. It's the entrepreneur who works because they want to, not because they have to. It's the family who takes a simple vacation every year without needing to post it online for affirmation. It's the parent who can take time off to care for their children, or the retiree who lives comfortably without worry. These people may not attract attention, but they have what most crave, peace of mind and the freedom to live on their own terms. There's a critical difference between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich often implies having money now, perhaps from a high-paying job, an inheritance, or a lucky investment. But being wealthy means having the systems and habits in place to preserve and grow that money. And more importantly, it means having the autonomy to decide how you use your resources. Flash is temporary. Freedom is sustainable. People who understand this principle tend to make different choices. They're not interested in buying things for the sake of showing them off. They focus instead on buying time, reducing stress, and increasing flexibility. They spend money in ways that add value to their lives, not just status. This might mean hiring help to free up time, investing in experiences that deepen relationships, or donating to causes that align with their values. It might mean living in a smaller house to avoid debt, or driving an older car to invest more for the future. These choices may not earn applause, but they earn something better, control. There's also a psychological layer to this freedom. When your sense of worth is no longer tied to material things, you stop competing with others. You stop comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel. You start making decisions that are aligned with who you truly are. You begin to prioritize health, purpose, creativity, and joy over trends and appearances. You start living with intention, not obligation. This doesn't mean that enjoying luxury is wrong. Wealth does allow for comfort, convenience, and access to beautiful things. But the difference lies in motivation. When luxury is an extension of freedom, it enhances life. When it becomes a substitute for freedom, it diminishes it. If you buy something because you love it, and it doesn't compromise your financial health or peace of mind, that's a conscious, empowered choice. But if you're buying something to impress, to signal status, or to distract from dissatisfaction, that's not wealth. That's a trap. Society often glorifies the loud side of money, the celebrities, the influencers, the extravagant stories of overnight success. But the wealthiest people, the ones who have quietly built fortunes, maintained healthy lives, and passed on values to future generations, rarely live loudly. They don't need to. Their lives speak for themselves. They don't chase likes or applause because they already have what others are looking for: freedom, security, and options. This kind of wealth is attainable for more people than we think. It doesn't always require millions of dollars. It starts with discipline, clarity, and a shift in priorities. It begins with the decision to live below your means, to invest instead of impress, to build instead of boast. It grows with every good financial habit: saving consistently, avoiding unnecessary debt, buying assets instead of liabilities, and living with purpose. In the end, the truest form of wealth is invisible to the eye. It's not parked in the driveway or worn on the wrist. It's felt in the calm of knowing you're not financially enslaved. It's experienced in the quiet joy of choosing your own path. That kind of wealth doesn't shout, and it doesn't need to, because the people who live it aren't looking for attention. They're already living the reward. Real wealth isn't built overnight. It doesn't happen through a single windfall, a lucky break, or a viral moment. It's built gradually, methodically, through years, sometimes decades of discipline, planning, and patience. While popular culture glorifies quick riches and dramatic transformations, those who have built and maintained lasting wealth know that the true foundation of financial success lies in long-term thinking. It's not about what you can afford today, but what you'll still be able to afford comfortably and confidently 10, 20, or even 50 years from now. At its core, long-term thinking requires a mindset shift. It means resisting the constant pull of immediate gratification in favor of sustained, future-focused decisions. It means making choices that may not look glamorous now, but will yield greater freedom, stability, and security in the future. And in many cases, it means being willing to delay visible success so that quiet, invisible foundations can be built, foundations that are far stronger than any temporary show of wealth. This way of thinking is one of the reasons why many of the truly wealthy don't flaunt their money. They aren't focused on proving their wealth to others because they're too busy preserving and growing it. Their goals extend far beyond the next big purchase or social event. They think in terms of legacy, of generational impact, of resilience in the face of economic uncertainty. They understand that every dollar spent today is a decision about tomorrow, and they choose their tomorrows carefully. Long-term wealth builders tend to make calculated, thoughtful decisions. They prioritize investments over consumption. They value assets that grow in value: stocks, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, over items that lose value the moment they're purchased. They understand compound interest, not just in financial terms, but in life terms. Small, smart decisions made consistently over time multiply. Whether it's saving regularly, avoiding debt, staying in good health, or nurturing key relationships, the principle remains the same. The long game wins. This is not to say that long-term thinkers don't enjoy life. On the contrary, many of them live very full, rich lives, but their enjoyment comes with balance. They know what they can afford without jeopardizing their future. They spend mindfully and within their means, and most importantly, they make peace with the fact that they don't have to match anyone else's pace or image. They are building something sustainable, something that won't collapse under the weight of appearances or short-term excess. Contrast this with the lifestyle of someone who is caught in the cycle of trying to appear rich. Without long-term thinking, financial decisions are made impulsively, based on emotion, ego, or societal pressure. There's little concern for how today's spending might affect next month's savings or next year's security. The result is often a life that looks successful on the outside, but is full of stress, debt, and instability behind closed doors. The need to keep up, to project success constantly, creates a fragile, high-maintenance existence that leaves little room for genuine growth. In contrast, the long-term thinker builds quietly and steadily. They may not post pictures of every financial milestone, but they experience something much more powerful: the confidence of knowing that their future is taken care of. They can weather downturns in the economy, unexpected expenses, or life changes without panic. They've prepared, planned, and protected themselves. And that sense of security, though it may not be visible to others, is worth more than any temporary applause. Long-term thinking also fosters emotional stability. When you're not chasing quick wins or reacting to short-term market changes, you develop patience, discipline, and focus. You learn to accept fluctuations as part of the process, rather than as threats to your identity or success. This mindset is critical in investing, business, and life. It allows you to stay grounded when others are reactive. It helps you make decisions based on logic, not fear or impulse. And it cultivates a kind of inner wealth, a maturity that mirrors your financial journey. The benefits of this approach often extend far beyond personal finances. People who think long-term tend to be more thoughtful in other areas of life as well. They invest in relationships, in health, in education, and in community. They are often more generous, more intentional, and more strategic. Because they are not consumed by the need to be seen as wealthy, they have the bandwidth to focus on what truly matters. Their wealth supports their values rather than dictating them. Moreover, long-term thinkers often build wealth that outlives them. They don't just accumulate money, they create legacies. Whether it's a family business, a charitable foundation, or a set of principles passed down through generations, their wealth is rooted in purpose. It is meant to endure, to evolve, to empower others. And that kind of wealth, sustainable, stable, and intentional, is far more impactful than any display of luxury or status. In the end, long-term thinking doesn't just change your financial path, it changes your entire outlook on life. It teaches you that real power lies not in showing off what you have today, but in building a life that will serve you and those you love for decades to come. It's not glamorous and it's not loud, but it is steady, strong, and deeply rewarding. The truly wealthy don't chase the spotlight. They chase security, freedom, and peace, and they get there by thinking far beyond the moment. In today's hyper-connected world, silence often feels unnatural. We are constantly encouraged to speak, post, share, and broadcast. Visibility is equated with value. People reveal intimate details of their lives to strangers online, announce their every success, and display their possessions like trophies. In this environment, staying silent can seem odd or even suspicious. But to those who are truly wealthy, and not just financially, but also emotionally and strategically, silence is not weakness or secrecy. It is a deliberate and intelligent form of security. Real wealth is quiet because it understands the cost of attention. The more you show, the more others want a piece of it, whether through admiration, expectation, envy, or opportunism. When you announce what you have, you attract more than applause. You attract people who may not have your best interests at heart, who may want to take advantage of your resources or your trust. Silence becomes a barrier, not to keep people out, but to keep intentions clear and motives clean. For the wealthy, being discreet isn't about being secretive in a shady way. It's about protecting what's important. It's about reducing risk. That risk comes in many forms, from financial predators, from manipulative acquaintances, from overexposure in legal matters, or even from friends and relatives whose expectations change the moment they become aware of what you own. A life lived too loudly invites complexity. The quiet rich know that when fewer people know your business, you maintain control. You set the terms of engagement. You decide who gets access to what parts of your life. There is a practical wisdom to staying silent. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify your choices or your fortune. You don't have to deal with unsolicited opinions or comparisons. Silence keeps you focused. It protects your energy. It frees you from the distractions of perception so you can stay anchored in your reality. It gives you room to think, plan, observe, and adjust without noise from the outside world distorting your judgment. Silence also helps manage expectations. The more people know about your wealth, the more they feel entitled to your generosity. That's not to say generosity is wrong. Many wealthy individuals are deeply philanthropic, but there is a difference between giving freely and being constantly asked to give. When people don't know your capacity, they are less likely to pressure you. You get to choose how and when you give, based on principle rather than pressure. There's also a legal and safety dimension to this silence. Wealthy individuals are often targets, not just socially, but legally. People may sue more easily when they believe someone has deep pockets. Criminals may be more likely to target homes, bank accounts, or identities of those who have made their wealth visible. That's why many high net worth individuals use trusts, shell companies, and anonymity clauses. They use financial vehicles not just for tax purposes, but for protection. Their silence is part of their defense system, shielding them from unnecessary exposure and risk. In a deeper sense, silence also reflects maturity. It's a sign that someone no longer needs external validation to feel worthy. They've made peace with success. They no longer define themselves by how much attention they receive. They're not chasing status or applause. They know who they are and what they have, and they don't need to prove it to anyone. That kind of quiet confidence is far more powerful than any boastful display. It's rooted, grounded, and secure. The loudest people in the room are often not the most successful. They're the most insecure. They feel a need to be seen, to be affirmed, to be envied. But the quiet rich don't crave those things. They crave stability. They crave peace. They crave authenticity, and they understand that those things are easier to preserve when you're not constantly performing. This principle applies beyond money, too. Silence as a form of security shows up in how people manage their time, their relationships, and even their ambitions. The wealthy know that not every goal needs to be shared before it's reached. Not every plan needs to be discussed. Silence allows them to work in peace, to grow without interference, and to pivot without explanation. It gives them flexibility and autonomy. When nobody is watching, you can move faster and more freely. You don't have to manage narratives or deal with backlash for changing your mind. There's a discipline in staying quiet, especially when you could shout. When you've achieved something extraordinary and choose not to make a spectacle of it, you are exercising control. That control is a kind of internal wealth, a wealth of character, and it tends to protect the financial wealth that accompanies it. Because when your life isn't a public display, there's less to attack, less to envy, and less to manipulate. Some of the most powerful people in the world live low-key lives. You wouldn't know them on the street. Their homes, though expensive, are not tour-worthy. Their names aren't trending and their photos aren't circulating. But behind the scenes, they make decisions that shape markets, fund innovation, and influence the future. Their silence is not absence, it's intention. They know the value of discretion, and they embrace it as an asset. In a noisy world, silence is underrated. But to the truly wealthy, it's priceless. It is peace. It is power. It is safety. Silence may not earn you likes, followers, or headlines, but it will protect your freedom, your assets, and your sanity. And that kind of security is something no amount of public praise can ever replace.